we are going to talk about scaling complex projects. So these tend to be things like music videos, documentaries and film that require a significant investment monetarily in the production of that story. And as with a lot of things, if you're just starting out in the field, if you don't really have a track record behind you, or if you're trying to prove that this kind of thing works for this particular type of format, you tend to have to scale down your ambitions until you have a proof of concept before you can go ahead and go forward with that great big vision you originally had. So there are many times where you'll start a collaboration where you are not able to start with that super awesome version of your project, either because individually you don't have experience, or the thing you want to do is complex enough that it is perceived that you don't have enough experience. So you need to consider how you will work your project up in stages. So first thing, think of that ultimate project that you want to do and be realistic about the costs of that project. Particularly in film, I don't have to tell you guys that, you need to consider everything from makeup, not only the actors and the directors, but the sound recordists and the cameramen and the people who are going to pack up and set down, and logistics and people getting permits. And so make sure that you really truly consider exactly how much that project's going to cost. It could be in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So take a look at your collective star power and track record. Is this something that someone is going to look at your CV and then the previous projects that you've done and really give you all of that money that you're asking for? If the answer is no, then you need to figure out how you can scale it back and do it in cheaper ways. How you can create a project that has a similar effect but uses cheaper tools and services and methods. So create a smaller pilot version to do your proof of concept, and then try and partner with a funding body to fund it. So is it suitable for, say, a festival, or a small council, or a national council arts body, or potentially a film studio to be able to support and fund it? Do you have to self-fund it? What are the different levels of funding that you can get, and how big do you need to be, and how much proof of concept do you need to have to get those levels of grant funding? So if you build up your proof of concept, that is when you can start going for that bigger money, your federal grants programs, your big state organizations, as I said, like studios, getting those greater amounts of money, like film and TV studios that do like web series and YouTube and all of those kind of things. Like, what is the level, and when do you get to that bigger money, and what do you have to prove to make sure that they know that you know what you're doing? So Story City is absolutely no stranger to this. When I launched the pilot project in 2012, it cost me a grand total of $140, because that's what it costs to print the posters, to buy the zip ties, to print off those QR code maps, and to do the flyers for the event. And so while we could have gone straight to apps, they weren't really a thing back then, and they were quite expensive to make, hellishly expensive in fact. So instead we used free QR codes and free scanning apps. And the way that we got exposure for the project, our free publicity and marketing, was by partnering with the local Adelaide Writers Festival. So the next year we then got to level up. So when we approached we got approached by the local council in Brisbane, we were able to show them a proof of concept, even though technically we didn't get that many people finishing. People were excited about it. And so with that proof of concept, we altered our method to use more expensive and less destructible materials. We were actually able to pay people, and then we reached a wider audience. So the next year we were then able to apply for the $25,000 Brisbane City Council Innovation Award, which then allowed us to create the app and gave us even more leverage. And so now that we're able to take this app to investors and show them what we've done and what we've accomplished, then we'll be able to build greater versions of the app where people can actually sell and buy location-based stories, and we have even more leverage until hopefully we become the people that fund those kind of things in the same way that Netflix now has become a studio when initially it was just a streaming service, right? So we are constantly scaling up our grand visions. For Story City, we want to be the repository for the world's stories, and we want to redefine those stories so that there's something you're a part of rather than something you're told. And that's our big grand vision. And the more awards and stories that we get under our belt, the better that we do and the more we're able to scale up and bring more people on board. So if you are doing that mini documentary series for the non-for-profit, or trying out some interactive theatre or interactive film, how can you bring people in? Can you bring in friends and family to be able to try out different concepts? Do you know people who can do you favours in exchange for you doing favours? Do you have a small grant that you can use to pay key people? What are the different ways that you can scale your grand vision down to achieve a similar effect and then scale it back up again? We are so excited to see the kind of amazing stories that you guys are going to be doing in video and audio in this way. And I hope that this idea of scaling up and showing people proof of concept and showing them that you can make money with these kind of wonderful interactive performance projects, the sky's the limit. So in our next video, we are going to show you the technical tips for creating with Story City, and we'll delve into how we make sure that all of the things that you need to think about technically are involved in the initial writing of your story, so that you don't end up with any hiccups when people go through the experience.